Welcome to the Deep Dive. Today we're venturing into the unfolding enigma of Regulus 5. It's a celestial body that, well, it started as a question mark and pretty quickly morphed into a full-blown crisis.
Mm.
Our window into this situation comes from these expedition reports, specifically from the Grindman-Friedenswerken's Vision Unit Regulus. It's like a chronological account of their really unsettling discoveries.
Exactly. And we're looking at a mission that began with assessing what they initially called a problematischer Himmelskörper, basically, a problematic celestial body.
Right. Problematic. What did that even mean at the start?
Well, the early data just hinted at unusual energy signatures, maybe some instability that warranted a closer look. But what they actually found, it went way beyond those initial concerns.
So listener, our mission today is to trace this escalating strangeness, right alongside the Vision Unit. We'll follow their journey from these weird orbital observations that just defied explanation to some truly disturbing encounters down on the surface. Let's start with what they found, even before landing something really bizarre up in orbit. Okay, let's unpack this orbital anomaly.
Right. So the first reports detail an ausgedehntes, scheinbar instabiles Portal, which translates to a vast, seemingly unstable portal just hanging there in geostationary orbit.
Geostationary. So it stays right above the same spot.
Exactly, meaning its influence is like constant, inescapable for whatever's below. What's immediately striking is just the sheer scale and the apparent instability of this thing. It wasn't just floating there passively. Sensors picked up a hochgeschwindigkeitigen Luftstrom, a high-velocity airstream blasting out of it.
And this wasn't like a gentle breeze, was it?
Yeah.
The report calls it a vernichtender Luftstrom,
A devastating blast of air.
violently directed towards the surface.
Yeah.
You can only imagine the kind of impact it's having down below.
Precisely. The raw energy involved in something like that, its very nature, as the report emphasizes, defying known physics, it's immense. It paints a picture of an incredibly dynamic, hazardous environment right from the get-go.
What could even sustain a portal like that? And what's driving that airstream? Those are the immediate questions, aren't they?
Absolutely. It makes you wonder about the stability of the whole system.
So even just getting to the surface sounded like an ordeal. The landing wasn't exactly smooth sailing.
Not at all. The atmosphere turbulence they hit was directly blamed on the chaotic energy coming off this orbital portal. It made for a landing described as äußerst schwierig, extremely difficult. But once they touched down...
Well, the nature of the problem took on a whole new, deeply unsettling dimension.
And this is where we come face to face with the Horden von Menschen. That term itself is loaded, isn't it? It instantly brings certain images to mind.
It does.
But these weren't the mindless, aggressive hordes from, Earth mythology, were they? There were crucial, disturbing differences.
Yes, and what's fascinating and deeply tragic is the distinction the report makes. While Horden von Menschen might initially suggest those classic zombie Horden, the researchers quickly observed a profound Verzweiflung in these individuals, despair, and a significant loss of orientation. So not just mindless aggression.
No, this wasn't just about base instinct. There was this undercurrent of suffering, a complete disorientation with their surroundings, and maybe even their own existence.
The details of their appearance are quite haunting, too. Signs of severe neglect, tattered clothing, those vacant or sorrowful gazes. It really speaks to a profound internal state.
Exactly. Their minimal interaction with each other, the sense of complete isolation, even when they're in a crowd, is very telling. And then there's the issue of communication. Their speech was fragmentarisch, verzerrt oder nicht coherent. Fragmented, distorted, or incoherent. It indicates a fundamental breakdown in their ability to connect through language.
The report specifically highlights loss of clear language and Sprachverwirrung, language confusion. So it's not just that they weren't speaking understandably. It seemed like the very mechanisms of coherent expression were failing them.
And this breakdown went far beyond just words. The researchers noted a Verlust von Erinnerungen, klarem Denken und emotionaler Verbindung, a loss of memories, clear thinking, and emotional connection. This aligns with earlier mentions of chaos and Verwirrung im Kopf, chaos and confusion in the head, and the Schwinden der Realität, the fading of reality. So it wasn't just a physical ailment, it was a fundamental disintegration of their cognitive and emotional landscape.
It starts to paint a clearer picture of those fragmented rumors they had heard before landing, whispers of a schreckliche Krankheit, die angeblich Lebewesen in Monster verwandelt, a terrible disease supposedly turning living beings into monsters.
Right.
And descriptions of undeutlichen Wahrnehmungen und einem unaufhaltsamen körperlichen und geistigen Verfall, unclear perceptions, and an unstoppable physical and mental decline. It seems those fears weren't unfounded.
And what's particularly concerning is the mention of Oliver Pollock's anspanning, his anxiety, and those persistent rumors that Regulus 5 eine Falle sein soll, that Regulus 5 might actually be a trap. These initial observations of widespread decay certainly lend a disturbing weight to those anxieties.
Okay, so we have a planet battered by this destructive orbital thing and inhabited by a population experiencing a catastrophic loss of self. But the initial expedition, that was just the beginning, wasn't it? The second report suggests even more fundamental disturbances at play.
That's right. The transition to the second report marks the discovery of besorgniserregende Anomalien, worrying anomalies, that suggest the problems on Regulus 5 go far beyond the biological or atmospheric. We're talking about potential breaches in the very fabric of reality.
And these weren't subtle fluctuations, were they? The report talks about something much deeper.
Indeed. Their sensors detected significant Anomalien im Raumzeitgefüge anomalies in the space-time fabric with absolutely no counterpart in known physics. Think of the space-time fabric as the very structure of the universe. These anomalies suggest fundamental distortions, maybe rips or tears in this fabric. The intensity and, crucially, the fluctuating nature of these anomalies point to a source of immense, potentially unimaginable power, something truly alien to our current understanding. The report even uses the word erschreckend, frightening, to describe the readings.
It makes you wonder what kind of entity or phenomenon could actually warp space-time on that scale. It's beyond anything in our theoretical models.
Yeah, it really is.
And this raises a huge question highlighted in the report. Why hasn't the Continental Regierung, the Continental government, made any public announcement about this? The phrase alle illusion, all illusion, is used. It hints at a potential deliberate concealment.
Yeah, that's a big one. This brings up important questions about transparency, about potential hidden agendas. The report itself mentions the internal decision within Greinmann Friedenswerken to maintain secrecy, citing potential risks and, maybe more pragmatically, prioritizing the Sicherung unserer finanziellen Ressourcen, securing their financial resources.
So covering their own assets, basically.
It suggests a degree of self-interest, definitely, and a very cautious approach to disseminating information that could have widespread repercussions.
And just when the situation seems as strange as it could possibly get, we have the unerwartet Zwischenfall, the unexpected incident. This heavily armored landing ship shows up. Talk about an escalation.
Exactly. The arrival of this unknown vessel, followed immediately by the encirclement of the research unit by the Solar Soldatenstaffel, the Solar Soldier Squadron, dramatically raises the stakes. This was not a friendly visit.
These solar soldiers didn't exactly arrive with open arms, did they? Their demeanor is described as aggressive and einschüchternd, aggressive and intimidating. And the report notes they seem to possess prior knowledge of the Greinmann Friedenswerken's mission. That's a major red flag.
It absolutely is. The ensuing angespannte confrontation, tense confrontation, forced the researchers to offer vague, really carefully worded responses. It just underscores the precarious position they suddenly found themselves in.
So someone else knows what's going on, or thinks they do.
Exactly. The uninvited and forceful involvement of the Solar Soldatenstaffel strongly suggests a hohe Ebene des Interests, or de control, a higher level of interest or control surrounding Regulus 5. Who are these soldiers working for? What's their ultimate objective? It hints at a much larger narrative unfolding behind the scenes.
It really feels like the initial scientific expedition just stumbled into something far more complex and potentially dangerous than they could have ever imagined. Now, the third report details their attempts to continue their investigation, but it sounds like these solar soldiers actively hampered their efforts.
Oh, significantly. The report explicitly mentions the großen Schikanen, significant harassment they faced from the Solar Soldatenstaffel. It severely restricted their ability to study the infected individuals. Despite these limitations, though, they did manage to secure a small number for closer examination.
And the findings from those limited investigations were deeply troubling, to say the least.
The erschreckender Zustand, the terrifying condition of the captured individuals, is particularly disturbing. The report states that their Geist vollständig inaktiviert, their minds were completely inactivated.
Inactivated? What does that even mean?
It sounds like leaving behind an empty hull, an empty shell, seemingly driven by only the most primitive instincts or maybe some unknown external influence. This Inaktivierung des Geist, inactivation of the mind, represents a fundamental and terrifying transformation. It's not just a disease affecting the body, it's like an erasure of the very essence of what makes them individuals.
It's as if whatever afflicted them didn't just damage their minds, it extinguished their inner lives, leaving behind only this biological framework. That's chilling.
It is.
But amidst this scientific horror, the third report unveils something else, a fascinating and potentially significant cultural phenomenon.
Yes, the mention of the culturel alpharbetum, the cultural processing of the situation by a group known as Doza Crew. It's a truly intriguing development. Their music, with recurring lyrical themes of verfall, transformation, einem zombiehaften Zustand, decay, transformation, and a zombie-like state, bears these unsettling parallels to the infected individuals and the overall verfall's process of decay documented on Regulus 5.
So are they seeing this firsthand? Are the Doza crew like operating outside the official channels? Or is their art maybe a more intuitive, almost prophetic response to this pervasive sense of unease and decay on the planet, even among those not directly affected?
Those are exactly the questions it raises. The report directs us to the annex containing their song lyrics and audio recordings, suggesting that these artistic expressions might offer a different, perhaps more emotionally resonant layer of insight into the unfolding crisis.
And all this investigation and cultural expression is happening under the oppressive presence of those solar soldiers.
Right, making everything 10 times harder.
Let's dive into some of those lyrics from the Doza crew. Explore these parallels. Take the track, Infection. It immediately sets a tone of insidious internal breakdown with the line, ein unscheinbares Übel, das mich bald zermürbt, an inconspicuous evil that will soon wear me down.
Absolutely. And the breakdown of communication, so evident in the infected individuals, is powerfully echoed. Mit brüchiger Stimme schrie ich, gehört zu werden, with a brittle voice, I cried to be heard.
The feeling of entrapment and lost orientation is palpable and gefangen in Nebel, in this Schicksalsgerngel, trapped in the fog and fate struggle. It mirrors that loss of orientation the researcher saw.
Yeah.
And the internal cognitive collapse is vividly portrayed. Der Kopf dreht sich im inneren Chaos sicher hält. The head spins, inside chaos brightens.
And the fading of reality, the Realität schwindet, directly aligns with the researchers' observations of the infected losing their grip. The loss of clear thought is a recurring motif, like in der klare Verstand ein ferner Traum, clear reason, a distant dream. And the overall despair is just captured in Verzweiflung in jedem Gedicht, in jedem Wort, despair in every poem, in every word.
The terrifying transformation into a more primal state is starkly depicted too. Jetzt knurre ich und schnaufe laut, now I growl and pant loudly, and the descent into Zombiewahn and düstere Morte, zombie madness in a dark place. It's a horrifying internal and external metamorphosis they're describing.
Connecting this to the bigger picture, the song Fire a Bend, Closing Time, continues this theme of profound disorientation and loss. Seelen schreien leise, im Chaos verloren, Soul screams softly, lost in chaos. And Verwirrung tanzt im Kopf, ein endloses Labyrinth. Confusion dances in the head, an endless labyrinth.
There's also that strong sense of hopelessness. Unsichtbare Mauern, die Hoffnung begraben, invisible walls that bury hope, and a feeling that the world itself has become distorted. Die Welt dreht sich schnell, ein verzerrtes Bild. The world spins fast, a distorted image. It's a powerful, artistic rendering of a reality gone completely awry.
Moving to Nebelnacht, Foggy Night, we again hit that theme of being trapped, this time in this liminal space between life and death. Zwischen Leben und Tod, in der Schleife fange ich an, between life and death, in the loop I begin.
Wow.
There's a clear sense of lost direction. Stolper durch die Nacht, such an Sinn, stumble through the night, seek the meaning. And kein klarer Pfad, nor der Sound in meinem Ohr schwirrt. No clear path, only the sound in my ear buzzes.
The presence of vacant, lifeless figures is chillingly portrayed with Seegesichter ohne Leben, sea faces without life. And even in this bleakness, there's a hint of a primal, instinctual drive emerging, described as rap zombies and their Dunkelheit getrieben von der Zeit, rap zombies in the darkness driven by time.
Then the song Schattenwesen, Shadow Being, explicitly links this state to a monstrous, predatory existence. Lines like, hungrig auf dein Herz, hungry for your heart.
Yikes.
And descriptions of occultem Blick, cold gaze, and kratzende Klauen, scratching claws. The loss of former humanity is central. Einst ein Mensch, nun nur noch Schatten. Once a human, now only shadow. And the stark, kein Herz mehr, no heart anymore.
And the lyrics convey this sense of eternal suffering, eternal unrest in lines like, Verdammst zu ewigem Streifzug, damned to eternal wandering, and Nero Finden, never find rest. It paints a truly desolate picture of their fate.
Finally, in Ewiger Streifzug, Eternal Wandering, which features OTZ, the presence of zombie stemmen, zombie voices, is prominent. The aimless wandering is depicted. Zwischen Ruinen schlendern sie blind. Between ruins they wander blindly. And an endloser Marsch, der keinen Halt hat. An endless march that has no halt.
The feeling of being lost, disconnected. Sehr sind Geister durch die Dunkelheit, torn spirits, through the darkness, and verloren auf dem Streifzug von Vernunft bewacht, lost on the wandering, guarded by reason. It's almost poetic in its bleakness. Even in this diminished state, primal urges persist, described as Lexender Zeit yearning time.
Right. And the unsettling atmosphere is underscored by references to this persistent soundscape. Hört den Ausruf der verlorenen Welt, hear the cry of the lost world, and ein Zombie-Lied, das die Dunkelheit zerschellt, a zombie song that shatters the darkness. The recurring imagery of Totstimmen, Totrhythmen, and Totmelodien further emphasizes this pervasive sense of loss and decay.
What's so striking here is the consistent alignment, isn't it, between the clinical scientific observations in the Grindman reports and the subjective artistic expressions of the Doza crew.
Exactly. The themes of mental and physical disintegration, the breakdown of communication, the apparent loss of self, the emergence of this primal, almost instinctual state. It's all mirrored across these seemingly disparate forms of documentation. It forces us to consider the nature of this crisis on Regulus 5 in a more holistic way.
So to summarize the increasingly bizarre situation on Regulus 5, we have this massive, unstable portal stewing destructive energy in orbit.
Right.
A surface population ravaged by a condition that seems to erase their very minds. Unsettling space-time anomalies that defy our understanding of physics.
Yeah.
And the heavy-handed, secretive intervention of the Soul Dayton staff. It's like a confluence of cosmic and human horror.
And perhaps the most unsettling element of this whole picture is that undeniable resonance between the objective scientific findings and the subjective artistic interpretations of the Doza crew. It compels us to ask, what is the nature of this connection?
Which brings us to our final, perhaps most unsettling thought for you, listener. Is the art of the Doza crew merely a reflection of the tragic reality unfolding on Regulus 5? A creative echo of the documented suffering? Or could it be something more profound? Could it somehow be intertwined with the very forces at play, acting as a cultural barometer, perhaps even a premonition? What does this convergence of scientific observation and artistic expression suggest about the true and increasingly strange story of Regulus 5? It's a question that lingers long after the reports are filed.
It definitely does.
Until our next deep dive, keep questioning what you think you know.